Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Professor Usha Shukla, Mr. Rajesh Lachman, Mr. Supiba Chunu, Mr. Piyush Khandelwal, distinguished guests and online viewers, welcome, namaskar, Jai Shri Ram. Welcome to the last episode of Manas Marg, with the theme being welfare or Mangal. To introduce today's topic and guest speaker, I would like to introduce Mr. Rajesh Lachman of the Hindi Siksha Sangh of South Africa for his remarks.
Usha Shukla ji, Shristi ji, Simpiwe ji, Piyush ji. This has been a very interesting journey, the last of 5 lectures. And the feedback from our listeners has been amazing in terms of the fact that they thought the initiative was great, but also they reveled in the wonderful wisdom that was shared by everybody. So today we have an interesting topic by a person who is no stranger to Hindi Siksha Sangh, and of course she was our ex-president, Professor Usha Shukla. Usha ji, once again, welcome to this program. Philanthropy and humanitarian work is ingrained in Indian philosophy and thought. Right from the philosophers and great thinkers like Chanakya and even before, a socialist perspective of life is what was always advocated. When we examine the Ramayana closely, it's no surprise then a similar philosophy also is explored and of course celebrated in Ramayana, in particular Ramcharitmanas. And today we're going to listen to Prof. Usha ji speak about how welfare, to a large extent, is the bedrock upon which a lot of the human values we learn from the Ramayana. And I'm hoping that at the end of this discourse, we'll all be enlightened and be enriched by the perspective she has. Usha ji, once again, thank you so much for being here. God bless you, and we look forward to listening to your pravachan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajesh Lachman, and that is Mr. Rajesh Lachman from the Hindi Siksha Sangh of South Africa. Thank you, sir, and to the Hindi Siksha Sangh of South Africa for collaborating for all the episodes of Manas Marg. Indeed, we have today joining us Professor Usha Devi Shukla, who will be rendering her knowledge and just on the topic of Mangal or welfare from the Ramcharitmanas. Professor Usha Devi Shukla has a PhD in Hindi from the University of KwaZulu-Natal and has retired in the year 2016. She is the ex-president of Hindi Siksha Sangh for the years 2016 to 2018. She has published 2 books on Ramcharitmanas. We welcome this evening Professor Usha Devi Shukla for her discourse on welfare.
Jai Shri Ram. Ram Janamu Jaga Mangala Hetu. Shri Ram was born for the welfare of the world. My greetings to all. A special thank you to the organizers of Manas Marg, which is so meaningful for us in South Africa, especially the Hindi descendants of the indentured Indians who came to this country with their most treasured possession, the Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas. We are celebrating not only Deepavali month, but also the arrival of the Indians in November 160 years ago. The relationship between the indentured Indians and the Ramcharitmanas is like that of the flower and its fragrance. We cannot separate the two. Ramcharitmanas was the lifeline of our ancestors who came to South Africa. Every topic in this series of Manas Marg, that is Vinay, Vishwas, Prem, Parakram and Mangal, humility, trust, love, bravery and welfare, resonates perfectly with the life and the activities of these indentured Indians. So to Dr. Yogiji and his team, of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, as well as Hindwani of the Hindi Shiksha Sangh, तहे दिल से धन्यवाद। 1860 में भारतीय शर्तबंद मजदूर यानी गिरमिटिया भारत से दक्षिण अफ्रीका पहुंचे। भारत छोड़ते समय हिंदी भाषी कल्पना भी नहीं कर सके कि आगामी जीवन कितना कष्टपूर्ण होगा। संघर्षपूर्ण जीवन में मातृभूमि की मधुर स्मृतियां जीवित हो जाती थी। यहाँ तुलसीकृत रामायण का योगदान सर्वोपरि था। पूरे दिन के श्रम के बाद वे थके मांदे खेतों से लौटकर रामचरितमानस के दोहों चौपाइयों में शांति, साहस और धीरज पाते थे। रामचरितमानस उनका एकमात्र सहारा था। जब कोई मनुष्य अपने प्राकृतिक वास से फ्रॉम देयर नेचुरल अबोर्ड अलग हो जाता है तो उसकी पहचान गहरा अर्थ रखने लगती है। पहचान अपनी भाषा, संस्कृति, परंपरा, मूल्यों और धर्म से जुड़ी होती है। विश्व में जहाँ भी भारतीय लोग बसे हैं, उन्हें इस बात का गर्व है कि वे भारतीय मूल के हैं और उनके लिए भारतवंशी होना महत्वपूर्ण है। इसलिए वे हमेशा इस प्रयत्न में रहे हैं कि उनकी भाषा, संस्कृति, जीवन मूल्य और धर्म जीवित और सुरक्षित रहे। यही स्थिति दक्षिण अफ्रीका में है। जब से ये प्रवासी उत्तर भारत से दक्षिण अफ्रीका आए, वे अपनी पाठशालाओं, स्वैच्छिक संस्थाओं, the NGOs, रामायण सभाओं और मंदिरों द्वारा अपनी भाषा, धर्म और संस्कृति को कायम और सुरक्षित रखने के प्रयास में रहे। गिरमिटिया न होते तो दुनिया राम को कैसे जानती। हिंदी भाषियों के पास सांस्कृतिक निधि थी। रामायण, गीता, महाभारत। मौखिक परंपरा सदा ही एक प्रबल साधन थी। रामचरितमानस के द्वारा प्रवासी लोग हिंदी सीखते थे। धीरे धीरे रामचरितमानस ने अशिक्षितों को शिक्षित बना दिया। संभवतः तुलसीदास जी ने भी कल्पना नहीं की होगी कि उनका रामचरितमानस आगे चलकर भारत के बाहर सिर्फ हिंदू धर्म की रक्षा ही नहीं बल्कि हिंदी सीखने का माध्यम बनेगा। मैं बेहिचक कह सकती हूँ कि जहाँ जहाँ हिंदी भाषी बसे हैं, वहाँ हिंदी भाषा और हिंदू धर्म की रक्षा करने के अतिरिक्त भाषा और धर्म के ज्ञान की अभिवृद्धि में रामचरितमानस को सबसे बड़ा श्रेय है। रामचरितमानस ने प्रवासियों की अनेक आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति की। धर्म ग्रंथ होने के कारण वह आध्यात्मिक जीवन के लिए एक महत्वपूर्ण स्रोत था। उनकी कथा और घटनाएं मनोरंजन की साधन बनी और रामचरितमानस हिंदी सीखने के लिए पाठ्य पुस्तक के रूप में उपयोगी सिद्ध हुआ। लोग रामचरितमानस की चर्चा के लिए इकट्ठे होते थे। बिनु सत्संग विवेक न होई। और 5-6 दशक की अवधि में कई रामायण सभाओं की स्थापना हुई। मंदिरों और पाठशालाओं में भी रामचरितमानस द्वारा हिंदी सिखाई जाती थी और रामायण पाठ होता था और आज तक होता है। रामचरितमानस की प्रासंगिकता और उसका प्रभाव उनके जीवन में अद्वितीय था। The Ramcharitmanas, its relevance and impact on the lives of the indentured Indians and their descendants is second to none. Shri Ram pervaded their lives and they lived through difficult times in the spirit of Ek Bharoso, Ek Bal, Ek Asa Viswas, Ek Ram Ghanashyam Hita Chatak Tulsidas. This is from the Dohavali, not from the Ramcharitmanas, but that is the spirit in which the indentured Indians lived their lives in the years when they had come to South Africa. If Ramcharitmanas, its story and characters had and still has such a profound positive influence on a community, it has to be Mangalmay and Mangalkari, taking care of the welfare of the individual, the community, and the country. When Sri Ram played as a child in the courtyard of Dasrath, he was auspicious, Mangala Bhavana Amangala Hari, and he brought joy to the entire family. He got rid of inauspiciousness. Ram hi kevala prema piyara. Love alone attracts Ram, and he showers love on all. When Bharat went to Chitrakoot with all the Ayodhya Vasis to convince Sri Ram to return to Ayodhya, this is what Guru Vashishta Ji says. Satya Sandha Palaka Shruti Setu, Rama Janamu Jaga Mangala Hetu. The champion of righteousness, that is Sri Ram, is dependent on none other but himself. Sri Ram is true to his word and maintains the standard of morality set up by the Vedas. His very advent is a source of blessing to the world. He was born for the welfare of the world. Throughout the Ramcharitmanas, Sri Ram is described as the upholder of dharma. Sri Ram's story has more appeal at the human level. He is known as Dharma Avatar and Maryada Purushottam as he lived a dharmic life of decorum and dignity. Sri Ram's care and capacity for the concern and responsiveness towards the needs and interests of others is remarkable. It seeks to remind us that our rights as individuals are only possible and meaningful in a context where equal recognition is given to our duties and responsibilities. Swami Vivekananda said, "Every duty is holy, and devotion to duty is the highest form of the worship of God." Tulsidas expresses the divine promise of the Bhagavad Gita, "Jab jab hoi dharma ke hani, baadhi asura adhama abhimani." And he goes on to say, "Tab tabash prabhu dhari bibida sarira, harahi kripa nidhi sajjana pira." Whenever virtue declines and the world is in turmoil and misery, and the good and the virtuous are in trouble, the gracious Lord takes avatar to relieve the distress of the virtuous. Ram Avatar occurred in a period when Ravan inflicted his evils and atrocities upon mankind. The holy sages were prevented from performing their acts of worship and upholding dharma. And as we all know, Sri Ram and Lakshman accompanied Vishwamitra to protect the yajnas, and that they did. Godhead has the quality of being all-powerful. The Lord, therefore, could have restored dharma instantly, but the nature and method of such divine intervention would provide no lesson from which mankind would benefit. So what did the Lord choose to do? Tulsidas Ji draws our attention to it in the following doha. Bhagat he tu Bhagavan Prabhu, Ram dhareu tanubhup, kiye charita pavan param, prakrita nara anurup. For the sake of his devotees, the blessed Lord Ram assumed the form of an earthly sovereign and played his most holy part in the manner of an ordinary man. And that is why we relate to Sri Ram so beautifully. It is therefore clear that Sri Ram Avatar took place out of compassion to serve his devotees and the world at large. Later, Sri Ram restored dharmic rule in Kishkindha and in Lanka, taking care of the welfare of those communities. Take an example. Did he want the golden Lanka? No. And why not? Because Lanka did not appeal to him, because Janani Janma Bhumischa Swargadapi Gariyasi, that the mother and the motherland are greater than heaven itself. Ram Avatar is remarkably pertinent and relevant in a context where the depressed masses yearned for a compassionate and merciful God to alleviate their hardships. Sri Ram is an ocean of karuna, that is compassion, and kripa, mercy, and the masses were therefore drawn to Sri Ram, who could feel their joys and sorrows. Parahita sarisa dharma nahi bhai, parapira sama nahi adhamai. Meaning, there is no virtue like benevolence, that is caring for others, and there is no meanness like oppressing others. Sri Ram had rescued Ahilya and Ma Shabari from their agony, and we learn many lessons on human dignity, bhakti, equality, and the empowerment of women from these episodes. In the eyes of Tulsidas, God is not a remote, passionless being, but a God to whom men pray and who hears their prayers. He is full of sympathy. He loves those who worship him, and he is pictured as one who loves righteousness and mercy. And best of all, he is not only pure himself, he demands purity in those who are devoted to him. Sri Ram, described in this way, was the answer to the prayers and became a symbol of hope to the medieval Hindu masses. His righteous conduct in the face of hardship helped inspire them to face their own problems while aspiring towards God or moksha. Same with the indentured Indians, and that's so with us today. In the Ramcharitmanas, one sees a beautiful, harmonious blending of bhakti, karma, and jnana. According to Tulsidas, every action ought to be an act of devotion to Sri Ram, like Sri Hanuman, who said when he was asked to take a rest, Ram kaju kinhe binu, muhi kaha vishrama. There can be no rest for me till I have accomplished the work of Sri Ram. While Hanuman makes the statement in the context of setting out in search of Sita, it is relevant in any situation of life. Work that we start, we should complete. His actions are always dedicated to the Lord or to championing the cause of Dharma. Hanuman, like Lakshman and Bharat, as well as Sita, are focused on the Lord at all times. Like them, we too need to be God-centric if we want to be successful in life. But we fall prey to the attractions of the material world and are most often egocentric and self-absorbed and obsessed. And great examples are Ravan and Bali, who were egocentric, self-absorbed, and self-obsessed. The physical world is part of Brahman. Sri Ram's Lok Mangal ki Bhavna, that is his dedication to the welfare of the physical world, is worthy of mention. According to Tulsidas, this world is a means to attaining Sri Ram and should not be looked upon as a place for attachment and bondage. Any person who wishes to end his karmic cycle needs the world and his human body. We are indeed fortunate to have secured a human body, bade bhag manushatana pawa. So one needs the world to free oneself from it, like one needs the body to free oneself from it. Both are gateways to moksha. The bondage is not due to the world. The bondage is not due to the world, but to the individual who succumbs to worldly attachment, thus retarding one's progress on the path to moksha. In fact, Tulsidas Ji reveres the world since he believes it to be a part of God and Siya Ramamay, infused with Sri Ram and Sita. Siya Ramamay sab jag jani, karo pranam jori jugapani. Recognizing the entire creation as full of Ram and Sita, I make obeisance to them with joined palms. The Jivatma is part of God or Brahman and must therefore be indestructible and reflect the qualities of Godhead as seen from the following line. Ishvara amsha jiva avinashi, chetana amala sahaja sukharasi. The soul is a particle of divinity, immortal, conscious, untainted by Maya, and blissful. If each one of us is a part of God, if our soul is part of the super soul, then we are all intrinsically connected. Hence the saying, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. We are a part of the divine, so we ought to have the Lord's qualities and values. We ought to care for each other, have each other's welfare at heart. We may not be omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, but we surely can be good, kind, caring, generous, loving, like Sri Ram and Sita, Bharat, Lakshman, and Hanuman, and a host of other dharmic characters. All served others and never themselves. This is our duty. Like all avatars, Sri Ram led a selfless life for the welfare of others, to uplift his devotees, for the welfare of the world. He lived solely for the world, never for himself. All great men and women, like Swami Vivekananda, Mahatma Gandhi, Ma Sharda Devi, to name a few, lived a life of significance for the welfare of the people. And that is why we remember them today. They lived for the welfare of the people, for the community and the country. To mention briefly, Sitaji lived for her Lord but never ceased to leave us the legacy of the ideal wife, as well as ideal in all her relationships. Lakshman left his wife for 14 years. Bharat left the comforts of his palace, his wife and family, and lived like a hermit in Nandigram. Hanuman, the perfect devotee, served Sri Ram so selflessly, and his only desire was to serve the Lord eternally. He did not even ask for moksha. This is selfless service, Mangal Mein Seva. Unlike the great scholar Ravan, who is left tainted eternally for his vile deeds, his craving for power and control, as well as his lowly conduct and arrogance. Ultimately, Ravan's own ego and arrogance destroyed him. Today we hanker for Ram Rajya, the perfect rule of Sri Ram, in which the ruler and the ruled were all happy. Ram Raj Baithe Tre Loka, Harashit Bhaye Gaye Sab Soka. With all the challenges throughout the Ramcharitmanas, the welfare of society and the country was finally achieved. Mangal hi Mangal. Ultimately, the Ramcharitmanas itself is Mangalmay for us. Not just Sri Ram and Sita, but the Ramcharitmanas itself is good for the welfare of the world and mankind. Kirti bhaniti bhuti bhali soi, surasari sama saba kahita hoi. The Ramcharitmanas is like the celestial river Ganga that is conducive to the welfare of all. May we all continue on the Manas Marg with humility, trust, love, and bravery for the welfare of the world. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. Thank you so much, Professor Usha Devi Shukla, for that really deep insight on Mangal, welfare from the Ramcharitmanas. Indeed, we can learn so many aspects that welfare to humanity is indeed blissful. We have come to the conclusion of the series of Manas Marg to celebrate the month of Diwali. Thank you so much for watching all episodes as well as for listening and watching today's. We've come to the conclusion of episode 5, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Sipiwe Mchunu from Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center to render this evening's vote of thanks.
Namaste. Namaskar. Good evening to all of you. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, at the Consulate General of India in Devon. I am so delighted today to deliver a vote of thanks on today's program, Marg Final Episode 5, with the theme Welfare. A big thanks to Sri Rajesh Lakshmanji for introducing our online guest, Professor Usha Shuklalji. We'd like to say thank you very much, sir. To our chief guest of today, Professor Usha Shuklalji, Dhanyavad ma'am, for whatever you said tonight. It also uplifted our spirits because today you told us that you reminded us that God loves us all. So if God loves us all, we have to love one another. If God loves us all, we have to help one another. If God loves us all, we have to have affection to one another. If we have affection to one another, we'll have a good society, and that good society will produce a good nation. Clergy, Dhanyavad ma'am, thank you very much. We were deeply reminded today that we have to be good to one another. To Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center team, under the tutelage of Dr. Taichana Prakash Yogi, Dhanyavad sir, thank you very much, sir. Sri Haranayaranji, thank you, ma'am. Piyush Kandelwaji, thank you, sir, for everything. To our online guests, thank you very much for taking part on today's program. Please visit our Facebook page so that you will be updated about all our upcoming cultural program. On that note, to all of you, Shuklaji, Dhanyavad ma'am, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Namaskar.